Hey there, I'm Becca, and this is the Fiber and Floral Knitting Podcast, and I'm glad you're here. This is basically a channel where I talk a lot about knitting and sewing, and there's been some embroidery, there's been some new spinning, basically anything that I'm up to craftually at the moment. But today I wanted to talk about um, Socktober coming up and some ideas I have, what I'm going to be knitting, and maybe what you're going to be knitting as well. If you don't know what Socktober is, I did. I only know it from the knitting community, and so I actually thought it was just this made up thing, which now yeah it is. But I thought it was this thing that originated in the knitting community, and basically was just to celebrate fall coming and being able to wear socks. And so, Socktober, it goes together. But actually, after doing some research, it was created by a man, I believe in Arkansas, correct me if I'm wrong, named Brad Montague. And basically, he realized that there were a lot of homeless people in his community who didn't have socks. And so he kind of did this big community project to give out socks to the homeless community. It's also one of the least donated items to shelters. And so this was a way to get the community involved and to do something that could really tangibly help the homeless people in his community, which I think is lovely. And so, being the sock lovers that we are, the knitting community came on board. And so you see a lot of knitting patterns released in Socktober, a lot of whom say, okay, the proceeds of this will go to a shelter in my area, or I'll donate to blah 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 blah. And so a lot of it originated in philanthropism. And I didn't know this. I thought once again that it was just to celebrate socks. So I'm really glad that I did some research because I don't want to take away from this amazing project that Brad started. I live in Berlin, which is one of the largest cities in Germany, and we do have a quite a large homeless population. My husband actually works at a women's shelter, so one of the things that I've decided to do is basically every pair of socks that I'm going to knit in Socktober, I am also going to donate a pack of socks to his women's shelter, or I guess we are going to donate a pair of socks to his women's shelter. And I guess if you're knitting a pair of socks, that's something, or even if you're not knitting a pair of socks, that's something that you could consider doing as well. I'm sure your local shelter would be more than happy to receive a pack of socks. And I hope you would join me in that. So that's just a really quick intro to what Socktober is. And basically, throughout the years, it's become in the knitting community where a lot of people focus on sock knitting in the month of October. I know a few years ago when I was really getting back into knitting, I knit my first pair of socks in October because I just saw everyone knitting socks and I'd never done it, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds really interesting." So, actually, I don't know where those socks are. Oh well, they are not in my sock drawer, but I've shown them on the podcast a couple of times. For the last 2 years, they were actually the only pair of socks I'd ever knit. And then finally, around May or April this year, I was like, I'm going to do it. I want to be a sock knitter. And since then, it's something I've really, really enjoyed, just as a great project on the go. And so today, I'm going to be sharing 20 sock patterns that you could knit with me in October. Uh, whether it's going to be your first sock or your 100th sock, I've kind of arranged the list so there's really good beginner and free patterns, as well as really complicated patterns that I don't even know if I could attempt at this point, but are on my for future years planning. So, yeah, I'm really excited. I think we've got some lovely socks. And even as I was making this list, I already have like my next couple sock projects planned, but I found myself being like, oh, maybe I could fit that in sometime in October or November. And so my my queue has grown a lot since making this list, which is the last thing I need because I think at this point my queue is about 15 items long, and that's just through the end of fall. But I hope you enjoy the selection I've made, and I hope you find a pair that you'd like to knit this Socktober. So I've taken these 20 socks and kind of placed them into 4 categories because I do like organization. And the first category being beginner friendly socks that are also free because I want there to be no barriers. If you've never knit a sock, I want you to know that you can do it, and I want to make it as easy as possible for you. So our first sock is the I'm So Basic sock by Summer Lee. And I talk about this sock all the time to my friends. Summer Lee is very much my favorite sock pattern designer, or one of them. I guess she's the one that I've knit the most. And that's basically because it was the first, I used her sock pattern to knit my first pair of socks. And I just love the way she's designed this. It's called, did I say already what it's called? The I'm So Basic sock, and I'm going to place her picture out to the side. But these are my recent pair that I knit when I was getting back into sock knitting in April. So this was the second pair of socks that I'd ever knit. And I just find the pattern that she's written so easy to follow. It's got great instructions. She's so clear, and she's got a video link within the pattern. So if you don't know what you're doing, you just click on that link and it takes you immediately to a video that is perfect and walks you through every single step so slowly. She explains why you do everything, and it is brilliant. I think this is such a great beginner pattern, and I want to say I guarantee that if you have not knit a sock, you can. If you are intimidated by fingering weight and 2.25 millimeter needles, the Crazy Sock Lady also has a pattern called the DK Vanilla Sock that's also free. I'll post a picture here. And it is knit on 3.25 millimeter needles, obviously using DK weight yarn. And another great vanilla sock pattern. I personally have never knit a DK weight sock, mainly because it just uses a lot more yarn, and I'd rather use more time than more yarn. I will say I received a lot of advice from other knitters when I was really scared of 2.25 millimeter needles, and they said, yes, it is scary at first, but it is the way to go. They make the most comfortable socks. You can really only wear DK or thicker socks a couple months out of the year, even in colder climates like mine. And so I was encouraged to do the fingering weight socks, and I absolutely agree that it's worth it. I can wear these pretty much year round depending on what sock yarn I'm using. And it does take a little bit longer, but once you really get going, I can knock out a sock in 2 to 3 days if I'm really trying to at this point. So it really doesn't save that much time. I mean, I say this having never knit a DK weight sock, but I wanted to include that one because I hear a lot of people who've never knit socks before say like, oh, it's just so much work. So try that one if you're too scared. Ease into sock knitting. There's also worsted weight socks and things like that. My hesitation with knitting worsted weight socks is I feel like they're just more like slippers, and I don't see a lot of socks with nylon in them. And you want your sock yarn to have nylon that's going to help your sock hold together against all the pressure of shoes and walking and blah, 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 blah. Anyways, we'll move on. The third pattern I have that is great for if you've knit like one pair of socks or you feel really comfortable knitting a vanilla sock, a great almost vanilla sock, like a stracciatella or a chocolate chip sock, if you will, is the Summer Camp Socks by Jill from Knitterella. And this is just a great, simple 3x1 rib sock. It only comes in one size, but it uses the same 64 stitches as my vanilla sock does. And so I'm actually planning to do another one of these summer camp socks for my husband who wears a size large. And I'm just going to take I think it's either 72 stitches for the large size, and I'm just going to do 72 stitches in 3x1 rib. The great thing about rib socks is because, rib kind of bunches together, these perfectly conform to your feet. And every time I put them on, I just feel so cozy. Like I think everyone deserves a hand knit pair of rib socks. I want to knit these for every single person in my life. It is just an actual hug for your feet, and I cannot recommend this pattern enough. or any rib sock pattern, you need to try rib socks. And this is a great pattern that I have knit. Um, I knit mine in fingering weight. Um, what is this called? Apple Blossom by Olivia and Fibers, which is just a dream yarn dyer for me. I can't believe I got to knit her sock. I love her sock yarn. So this is Apple Blossom and this is Pine. Sorry, I have some weird shadows going on. It's quite gray outside. Fall is coming and the sun is leaving, but we love it that way in Berlin. So this is a stunning pattern. I cannot recommend it enough. You definitely need a pair of rib socks if you don't have them yet. I plan on knitting my husband some for his birthday is in November. And when we were in Copenhagen, I got this sock yarn by, I can't say their name, Sisleriget, which is a Danish yarn company. And it's just lovely. It's got the loveliest like forest greens, and I'm just obsessed. It's the colorway is Wild Garden, and I'm hoping that I have enough to make myself a pair as well. Usually, I can make socks with like 50 to 60 grams, or 30 to 40 grams for my own feet. I'm quite small, and or my feet are quite small. And then I'm hoping I will have enough of his left over to make some for me. And I'll talk about this later, but I would love to hold this with him. I have some knitting for Olive mohair in dusty olive that I think would really pair well. So maybe I'll either make another rib pair of socks for me as well. Matching socks. That would be cute. But I would also love to knit. I could see holding this with a mohair, and I think it would just be the loveliest winter green, and doing a mohair sock. That's also on my list for winter, but we'll see what happens. Anyways, a small tangent. I'm really excited to knit these socks again. It is a fantastic pattern. And then moving on to, this is one of the first socks that I ever saw in Ravelry, and I've been obsessed with it every time I see it. I'm just like, oh, I have to add this to my list. It is the Color Palette Socks. And this is a great, like, once again, kind of like leveling up the difficulty on these beginner socks to where you start with number one on the list and can kind of keep going down. This is also like, it's a vanilla-esque sock. Maybe like a cookie dough, if you will. I don't know why I'm comparing everything to ice cream now. But fun fact, I used to work for an ice cream shop when I was getting in grad school with my best friend, Lauren, who gave me this cup with a little thumb because I used to always steal hers. And it was Steel City Pops in Birmingham, Alabama, when we were living together. And we had the most fun. It was handmade, like everything local ice cream. We made everything in hand in shop. Her now husband would like make the popsicles and pack them, and we would just like be at the front selling them. And it was the best time of my life. They paid me more to work there than they did for my teaching job at the time. So I would like teach kids in the morning and then go work there in the afternoons. Now you see why I'm teaching in Germany. um, but such a great time. So I'll always have ice cream will always have a special place in my heart, and so will Steel City Pops. Anyways, tangent over. For your cookie dough ice cream, I can recommend the cookie dough ice cream from there if you have a Steel City Pops near you. Anyways, clearly the last thing I need is coffee, but we are gonna finish this. So, anyways, the Color Palette Socks by Laura Muratz. I just think this is stunning. It's very much like, your basic rib at the beginning, and then vanilla like 95% of the way. But then in between, you have these, like, I think it's a knit slip. So, like, knit one, slip one, knit one, slip one. That adds just like the tiniest little bit of texture. And I just think it's a lovely little striped sock. And my only fear when I knit these is one of my weaknesses in my creativity that I'm trying to grow is I don't really put colors together well. Like, what I end up doing is just like, oh, I love that color, I'm going to put it in. Oh, I love that color. And they don't actually look that good together. They're just colors I like, which is fine, but I would like to grow in pairing colors well. And so that's always been my issue with these socks is I like these colors. I know they're like, I think they look stunning in the picture. I know I wouldn't wear them. I'm going to need something brighter or more green or more like a happier, warmer, kind of like dusty fall colors are kind of like my jam. And I try to like stick to those like dusty olives and mustards and rusty reds or rusty oranges. So if anyone has an idea, like something that I've been on the look for ages, is like a mini set. And so if you have a mini set with like 20 grams each of sock yarn, I think this would be an excellent pattern for you. If I ever come across a mini skein like that has great colors together, I would absolutely consider this pattern. Actually, now that I think about it, I think Wool & Twine came out with like a Taylor Swift kind of purples that I almost bought at Vetting Wool Weekend. And I kind of wish that now that I'm saying this, that would be perfect for that. Maybe I'll see if she's coming out with another mini set soon. That would be lovely. But so yeah, this has gotten added to my queue. I definitely want to knit this sometime in the next year. Another great sock yarn, and number 5 on my list of beginner friendly and free patterns is the Indoorsy sock by Sonder Yarn Company. And this is a lace plus fingering weight yarn. So kind of like a DK, it's knit on 3mm needles. And once again, I put this on here mainly because I am just really want to knit a mohair and fingering weight sock. I think I've heard just how delightful they are come winter. And this is another great rib sock pattern. I would love to knit this. Like if I end up knitting this with mohair, I would absolutely consider this pattern. It just seems really lovely. Once again, ribbed, but with mohair. And oh, I think it would just be the perfect Christmas present. And it's knit on 3mm needles, so it should knit up really fast. And I think this would be great, something great to try. So those are my 5 beginner friendly and free patterns. Now moving on to my second category, which is lace socks. And I want to start with another sock by Summer Lee, or another sock set by Summer Lee, the In Bloom sock set. And I was instantly obsessed with this sock as soon as I saw it. I think it is just stunning, specifically the Tender Age sock. And once again, I'm kind of still going a level of difficulty. If you've never done anything besides a vanilla sock or a vanilla-esque, a chocolate chip sock, this would be a great lace pattern to start out with, specifically the Tender Age sock, because it is just a tiny little lace pattern at the top and then stockinette vanilla all the way down. And I just love this. I'm getting a shadow here. Hang on, I'm gonna adjust my camera a little bit. And I wear these so much. I don't know if you can tell. I actually have 2 of these socks that I did right after the other, and I love them. They go so cute with like tennis shoes, or even I've worn them with some open-toed heels, and my husband did not think that was a look, but what does he know? And it's got the cutest little scallop at the top, a sweet little leaf lace pattern, some baubles, which you can omit if you want, and then yeah, your standard cuff and stockinette heel. Super easy to do. I love it. And then there's also these sing-along socks. So that's sock number 2 in this category that I would love to knit. I think it's just this beautiful lace pattern. It's kind of all over, and so more of an advanced pattern. But so I haven't done it yet because I'm still relatively new to sock knitting. But that's definitely on my queue for spring. I think it's absolutely stunning. And then 3, oh, the Poet Sock by Sari Nordland. I mean, I think we all have an obsession with Sari Nordland, but I specifically have a obsession with all of her poet patterns. She recently released a poet hat pattern, just anything. I just think it's the most beautiful motif. And I've recently knit, I've shown this on here before, so it's nothing new, but can you tell that I'm really in a purple mood lately? I've recently knit the Poet Shawl by Sari as well, and I just think this pattern it's stunning. I could see myself knitting everything in the Poet collection at some point. I love it in all the colors. That would make my day. And then is that 4? Number 4, another free pattern, but not beginner friendly, so it wasn't included, is the Cozy Autumn socks. And this is one that wasn't on my queue. It's always been like in the back of my mind, this is a sock pattern I've known about for a couple of years, but since making this list, it is like moved to the front of my queue. So like I want to knit this fall. I think it probably won't be till November because I have a lot to get through in October, but it's just beautiful and it looks like cables, but it's actually just words. It is actually just yarn overs and knit togethers or slip knits. Stunning. I love patterns like this that look really extra, but they're actually just a little magic of stitches put together. Absolutely stunning. I would love to knit this in a similar color. Maybe with, if I have some of this yarn, I'll talk about what I'm going to use for this later. But if I have some of this autumn leaves left over from another sock pattern I'm going to knit in October, I would love, I could definitely see knitting these in this. Absolutely. It would be stunning. So I hope to get to that in November. We'll see. And number 5, of course, another summer lead pattern. It is the Barbara sock. And this is very similar to the Cozy Autumn sock. It looks really complicated, but it's just slip overs and knit togethers or slip knits. So beautiful. I love like the off-centered lace detail, and then the rest is just vanilla. Love it. I've talked about before on this podcast that like one of my favorite projects to knit are those that are a lot of stockinette with like a little detail. So like it's mostly just easy, relaxed knitting, but like a little wow factor to kind of keep you interested. And so you can say like, oh yeah, I did knit that, and it looks a little complicated, but it's mostly easy. So I think this is one of those patterns that absolutely is that it's just 75% stockinette with a little boom on the side. So yeah, those are our lace patterns. And then I want to move into our third category, which is of course texture. I've separated these from the lace just because to me texture is nice and chunky, and lace is a little bit softer, often has holes in them. And so it's more of a spring sock, whereas texture I usually associate with more of like a deep fall winter sock. That might just be in my brain, but in for some reason, yeah, my brain separated those. So texture. Number 1, another free pattern that I think would just be a great, easy textured sock is the biscuit sock. And that is by Fluffy Fibers. And it's really cute. Just a nice little texture for you there. Number 2 is a very similar sock by Lydia Rabarber. And I wanted to include her because I actually got to meet her in June. I guess it was June 1st for Wedding Wool Weekend. And she is just the loveliest. She's a German knitwear designer and has a whole Tikva collection. And this is the Tikva Sock Light. She also has one in DK weight. So pick your poison. And I just think this is the loveliest stitch pattern. She has a Tikva tank top, which I have my on for next year. This stitch pattern, I actually don't know what it is. It looks to be some kind of like broken rib stitch. I am obsessed with it. It's stunning. I would love to knit everything in this collection. I think it's just the most beautiful texture, and Lydia is the kindest, and I'm really excited to finally try out one of her patterns finally. So, number 3, we are back to Summerly Knits. Are you seeing a pattern here? I feel sort of embarrassed by how much of a fangirl I am of her, but I fangirl. When I do fangirl, it doesn't happen often, but I fangirl hard. I'm so loyal to people I don't know, and it makes no sense, but here we are, fangirling Summer Lee. The Cider House socks, and oh my goodness, if these are not the perfect name and the perfect pattern for fall, I want to knit these. I will knit these, and I think the way she did it with like the little red and white stripe, and then it's like a rib and cables, and oh, stunning. I want these. I want these in all the colors together. Like I want those like a nice like red and white stripe with a mustard. Oh, maybe that'll be my Christmas sock. That's just yeah, it's beautiful. It's stunning. I feel like now all I'm gonna be doing is knitting socks. Like just like forgetting my sweater patterns. I just want to knit socks now. This was a bad idea for me because now I just want all these all these socks. Stunning. Another lovely pattern. Just I think is the epitome. Like the name fits so perfectly. Cider House. It's just so quintessential fall and cozy and lovely. Perfection. This next one I had never seen before. It's number 4, and I am so intrigued by this. It is called the Ribbit Socks by Celine Phaeton. And what I found the most interesting, I do love, I think this is called a double broken rib stitch. I love this kite heel. Has anyone ever heard of this? Like, I'm going to post a picture here and I'm looking at it and I understand why she's calling it a kite heel, but I have never heard of this. And I feel like this is one of those things where my brain just wants to know how it's done. So I'm going to have to knit this. Like a lot of times, like with jeans, jeans for the most part fit me really well, but I just wanted to learn. I wanted my brain just needed to understand how it was done. Now that I've done it, I'm not so interested in like sewing jeans anymore. I mean, do still sew a lot of shorts because those are hard to find the right fit and the right like length that I want them. However, jeans, I'm just like, I'd rather buy them. But I had to know how they were made. And this is one of those like I have to understand how this kite heel works. I am fascinated by this. If you know of any other sock patterns or if this is not a new technique to you, please let me know because I'm super interested. I've never heard of this. Even like I was looking in Summer Lee's, I put it down. I was looking in the Sock Project book by Summer Lee, and she doesn't mention it. She has 5 different heels in there, and it's not mentioned. And so I'm wondering if it's like a new technique or maybe just not a well-known one. If you know more about that, let me know. I'm super intrigued. But I think this is a lovely textured pattern. And then number 5, whew, insert this is a designer that I am obsessed with. I feel like she has several sock patterns that are just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And to narrow it down, I picked the asterism, asterism sock pattern by Yuka. And like, do you just look at this? It is beautiful. And what I loved most about this is you can knit it with or without. There was just a little tweak to the pattern. And I felt like there was like a spring version and a fall version of the pattern, like with and without eyelets. And I just like how you can kind of she just tweaked the pattern a little bit to give you 2 options and it's completely different vibe. Absolutely love this. Everything by her is just stunning. I would love to knit these. Absolutely added to my queue. And then our final category is color work. As you know, if you've been watching this podcast before, I have recently gotten into colorwork knitting, specifically colorwork sock knitting, and I just love it. I think it's going to be like the thing for me going forward because it's just like a little happy and then, yeah, on your feet, a little happy on your feet. Specifically, I recently bought this isn't on my list, but it's so consider it a bonus. I recently bought the Colorwork Cuff Club sock pattern by Summer Lee, and I've talked about it before, but basically you buy the pattern every month. We're getting thus far, so it's been 2 months. She's come out with at least two patterns every month. And I know for October, she also said she has two. So you get at least 2 colorwork charts, or at least one colorwork chart every month. And so this was the August colorwork chart. And it's once again really lovely, a little bit of wow and straight stockinette. This is a theme of my knitting. You're going to see it again. Wow factor, stockinette. And this was such a great, I'd never knit colorwork sock before. I hadn't knit anything in colorwork up until, was it February when I finished my first colorwork yoke? So I'm really new to it and I'm really nervous going into October where I'm planning a big colorwork project. But since February, I've done 3 or 4 colorwork sweaters at this point for Christmas. If you're not following that, I'm knitting colorwork Christmas sweaters for my family. And so I feel decent with my ability to do colorwork yokes. And so colorwork cuffs was like the next thing where I was like, it's just a little bit, I can do it. So I think if you've never knit colorwork socks, this would be a great pattern to start off with. You didn't have to catch that many floats, and it was relatively easy to memorize and do the design. Definitely worth checking out. So that's a little bonus pattern I didn't include because it's like 16 patterns. But yeah. And so the first one I'm going to start off with is the Magic Toadstool Socks by Summer Knits. Or not Summer Knits. The Magic Toadstool Socks by Stole Knits. And some of you might know I cast this on this month. This was my September sock, if you will. And it's coming along so well. Look at those little mushrooms. This is another thing where, like, once again, you have the cuff, and then after that, it's just straight stockinette. And I'm super proud. Yes, I still have my needle attached from sewing in my ends. So what? Um, I did, I dyed this for myself. Do you see this color, like this heel? I dyed this. I couldn't find a pattern at home or a color of yarn at home that I wanted. And I was looking for something kind of in the mood for fall because I feel like with these colors together, it kind of has a really Christmassy. And so I wanted to make sure that my color for the heels very much said, like, no, this is a fall sock. That's important to me. So I've been trying out yarn dyeing and kind of experimenting with dyeing fiber to spin up. And so with no forethought, just grabbed 15 grams of white sock yarn I had on hand, shoved it in the pot, and dyed it up really fast. And I'm so proud of myself. And it goes so well. You have the teal from the sock, and then you have the reds and the yellows and oranges kind of give it a nice little fall vibe. So I feel like my new superpower is yarn dyeing because literally, like, anytime, like if it comes to what did I do with those Colorwork socks? If I want to knit a pair of Colorwork cuff socks, but I don't have a contrast color that I like, I'll just go and dye up 10 grams, 20 grams, and have a new color. This is like unlock something in my brain, and I am so excited to just experiment with dye on sock yarn, and it's going to be fun. So stay tuned for that. I am pumped. And if you're interested to see my whole spinning journey or dyeing, I will link those videos above. I have like one where I talk more about dyeing the yarn, and then one where I talk more about learning to spin. And so, yeah, if you're interested in that. But the Magic Toadstool sock, I think, is just beautiful. I've only knit one fully, and then I'm almost done with my second sock. And so basically, you don't have to worry. It's only 2 colors at a time, even though it looks like 3. This is duplicate stitch. Um, and yeah, I'm doing them on DPMs, my 2.5 needles, and I just love them. And I wanted to quickly show you this little stitch marker guy that I got. It is just beautiful. It is, where is it? So it is the Baubles and Berries stitch markers. I got these at Making Stories, which is a small fiber and yarn company in Berlin that we have here. I saw these at Bedding Wool Weekend, but before I could even get to the table, they sold out within like 10 minutes, she said. So I finally got my hands on them, and I'm so excited. Anyways, the Magic Toadstool sock by Stole Knit. I did want to mention one thing I did that you guys might also want to do. I adjusted the stitch count. So I knit the medium size, and the medium calls to cast on 64 stitches, which is pretty standard for my size. I'm not going to go into too much detail, don't worry. Um, but when you get to Colorwork, because it is a 12 stitch repeat, she recommends increasing your stitch count to 72. And I just knew, like, when I did my first pair of Colorwork socks, you can see how it kind of curves up. And I just knew that if I went up to 72 stitches, because my Colorwork often grows, the gauge gets bigger, and you are called to go up a needle size, that it would be too much. And so what I did was I actually decreased down to 60, and then used a 2.5 millimeter needle, and then went back down to a 2.25 millimeter needle for the stockinette. And that worked really well. These absolutely fit perfectly on my heel. And so if you're a loose colorwork knitter, I definitely would recommend going down to 60 stitches from 64 instead of increasing to 72. I just thought that was way too much. If you're a tight colorwork knitter, this is a great sock. But just follow it exactly, you'll be fine. But if you're a loose colorwork knitter like me, I would absolutely recommend doing that. And it turned out great. I'm hoping to finish this, yeah, by the end of September, so this week, and then start on my October socks. The next colorwork pattern is the Ovis sock by the Petite Knitter. And of course, I had to include this one because it is cheap. This is another pattern family. Like, she's got like an Ovis sweater and Ovis mitts that I want to knit all of. I would absolutely love, I think on my winter make night, I will absolutely have like a sheep a sheep colorwork sweater from someone. I might design it myself as well. But the Ova socks, I just love them. And I love specifically her idea to knit one sock in white and one sock in brown. I think if I knit these, I would love to do that and kind of just like a mixy matchy little sheep. Very cute. She's got some great, stunning colorwork patterns. If you don't know her, absolutely check her out. Beautiful work. And I love, I'm typically not drawn to neutrals, but for some reason, the neutrals she uses are just, they're stunning. They're beautiful. I love her vibe. She's just, everything's just pretty to look at. So, definitely worth checking out her Ovos collection, especially if you're, and we're all sheep lovers if we're knitters, but especially if you like to have little cute sheep around you, that's definitely one to check out. And then what's next? Oh, the Forever Autumn socks by Stone Knits. This is a 2-in-1, but I specifically want to talk about the leaf sock because this is going to be my Socktober 2024 sock. Fingers crossed because I'm so nervous. It is full over color work, and I've had the yarn bought for 6 months. I got one of my favorite yarn stores that I order from online because they're not near me. Strict Verliebt, and I believe they're in middle southern Germany, and I'm in northern Germany ish. One of my favorite sock stores to order online from is Strict Verliebt. They have lots of lovely fiber as well as Olivia and Fiber yarns. And I mentioned before, she's one of my favorite yarn dyers. And I ordered from them when they first started carrying her. I ordered I believe this is autumn leaves and pine, which is just together. So I'm going to do autumn leaves and autumn leaves. Let me see where you can see that color more. It's just a beautiful, like rosy pink and orange and yellows and browns. And it's just beautiful. And I think the main color will be this pine green. It's going to be autumn in a sock. It's going to be stunning. I'm so excited. I've been dreaming about knitting these socks for years, and I'm so nervous about using fancy sock yarn because honestly, I don't know if my gauge or my tension is going to go well. But so wish me luck. This is going to be my big Socktober sock yarn. And yeah, but I also could definitely see myself knitting the acorn version. I love them. So that is number 3, I believe. And then number 4 is like my aspirational. This is like if you have knit 100 pairs of socks, this is for you. This sock pattern terrifies me, but this is the reason I learned to knit socks. Like Socktober, was it 2022 when I knit my first pair of socks? 2021? One of those. I saw this sock pattern and I was like, this is the reason I will learn to knit socks. And I'm terrified. It is these Starry Night socks by Krupa Knits, and she also has a whole Starry Night collection. And oh, all of these, there is not enough time in the world to knit all the patterns I want to knit, but I love this pattern. It's so like, look at like, just stunning. We love hiking and biking and the mountains. I grew up at the bottom of the Smoky Mountains, and even though it is flat here in Berlin, I miss them so much. And I would love to knit these by Krupa Knits. It is just beautiful, like the subtle changing yarn from like blues and purples and light blues. Beautiful. Please someone knit these so I can just be jealous of you during the month of October. But I think by next year, if my Forever Autumn socks go well, I think this will be on my next year's bucket list to knit. I think I just can't go, and I can't go any more years without these socks. It is going to be beautiful. And then number 5, which interesting thing about this, it is these Sugar Cube socks by Andrea Yetman. Lovely. First of all, her color choices, beautiful. Not only are these color work, they are mosaic color work socks. And I've been getting more interested in mosaic knitting basically because Young Folk Knits is doing a mosaic knit along right now. I would love to participate. She's one of my favorite vloggers. I just don't have a mosaic knitting pattern that I seem to be able to fit into like what I have time for right now. And so I was looking into like, let's just see what mosaic sock patterns are available. And these came up, and it also seems like a great beginner friendly mosaic pattern. There's definitely some mosaic patterns that I'm really interested in. There's this shawl by, is it Moonstruck Knits? It's one of her most popular patterns that I would love to knit, but it's terrifying. And this feels approachable for a first mosaic knitting project. So if you're interested in doing that knit along, I've included these for you. And yeah, stunning. This was another one I could consider using up if I have leftover yarn from this, I could see doing this with like a dark purple as the main color, or even like a teal. Ooh, a teal as the main color would be really pretty. But yeah, so I've considered using this as well. I still am hoping to have at least 50 grams of less of this I can get a second sock out of. So that's a maybe for me as well. And with that, we are officially done with our 20 sock patterns for Socktober. I hope you found something that you're interested in knitting. If you have something else in your list that you're going to be knitting in Socktober, please let me know. Reach out and say hello, whether that's here or on Instagram or on Ravelry. All of these patterns are in my favorites under socks on Ravelry. So if you want to click the link below, it'll take you right to them, as well as a few others that didn't quite make the list, but I think are just absolutely stunning. There are so many good sock patterns out there. It was really hard to choose, and I felt like I could have gone on for hours. But I'm really happy with the list we've created, and I hope you got some inspiration. As always, feel free to reach out, say hello. It always brings me joy when we can turn this into a dialogue instead of me just monologuing on for hours. But it's been a joy to talk to you guys about sock knitting. And with that, happy Socktober, friends. Bye.